All right, guys, welcome to part 2 of the topic 11B test review. This is covering problems 8 through the end. If you need to see problems 1 through 7, please refer to part 1 of this video. Let's get started. So starting with number 8. Number 8 and number 9 are asking us to simplify the difference. So this is very similar to what we saw on 5, 6, and 7, except instead of adding this time, we are now subtracting. And so what we're going to do is it's going to be the same process as what we did on 5, 6, and 7. We're going to factor everything. We're going to cancel out anything that we can. We're going to find our least common denominator and move forward from there. So for number 8, since it looks like I can factor this numerator, I'm going to go ahead, try to factor it to see if I can cancel anything out before jumping into my least common denominator. So I'm trying to factor 24. Looking for a sum of negative 10. So in this case, that would be negative 4 and negative 6. So I could rewrite this as n minus 4, n minus 6, over, and let's try to factor 42. So we're factoring 42, looking for a sum of negative 13. That would be negative 6 and negative 7. So we're going to say n minus 6, n minus 7, minus 9 over n minus 7, because that one can't be factored. So if you notice here, these n minus 6's go away. It's now the only thing left in this denominator is n minus 7, which is the same as this denominator. So we don't need to manipulate it at all. We can simply combine these like terms. So we're going to be left with n on top, because he doesn't subtract, and then negative 4 minus 9 is going to be minus 13, and we have the denominator of n minus 7. We can't factor either of those, so we're going to be stuck with just that. Looking at number 9, this is closer to what we saw in number 7, so a little more factoring to do, but that's okay. I'll start by factoring this first numerator. I'm going to factor 30, looking for a sum of 11. Excuse me. So that's going to be, where did my pen go? There we go. It's going to be 5 and 6. So I'll rewrite it down here. We're going to have z plus 5 and z plus 6 over, we're factoring negative 20 this time. We're looking for a sum of 1. Remember, plus z is 1. If it said minus z, that would be a negative 1. So it's a negative 20, but we want a positive sum, so it'll be a positive 5 and a negative 4. So we'll say z plus 5 and z minus 4. Minus, got to do the same thing on this side. We're going to factor that negative 24. Looking for a sum of a positive 2. So that's going to be a positive 6 and a negative 4. So z plus 6, z minus 4, over, let's factor that denominator. We're factoring 18, looking for a sum of 9. It's going to be 3 times 6. So we'll say z plus, I wrote 6, z plus 6, and z plus 3. Now let's go ahead. Those z plus 5s can cancel. These z plus 6s can cancel. So we have less to work with, which is great. So now looking at my least common denominator. These two, they don't share anything, so we're just going to throw them together. It's going to be z minus 4 times z plus 3. And so we have to multiply this guy by z plus 3 over z plus 3. And this one needs to be multiplied by z minus 4 over z minus 4. So my denominators on both of these are now going to be z minus 4, z plus 3. My numerator on this one, remember I got to FOIL this guy. So that's going to be z squared plus 9z plus 18 minus, and then z minus 4 times z minus 4 is going to be z squared minus 8z plus 16 over, and again, that same common denominator now. So we get z squared minus z squared. Those are going to go away. We don't have a z squared now. Positive 9z minus a negative 8. Remember, when you're subtracting a negative, that's the same as adding a positive. So that's essentially 9 plus 8, which is 17z. And then 18 minus 16 is going to be 2. So we're going to end with 17z plus 2 over z minus 4. and z plus 3. So again, keep in mind, on a lot of these, we didn't really get to factor any of them to simplify it further. We did some of the factoring up front. But just know, your final answer, you could need to factor and simplify it further after you add or subtract. So keep that in mind. Refer back to your 11.5 notes if you want to see an example of that. Looking at 10, 11, and 12, we are solving these. So this is what we saw in topic 11.6, where, excuse me, we need to start by finding that least common denominator. So looking at number 10, we have negative 4 over x plus 1 is equal to negative 1 over x plus 5. So there's no factoring that needs to be done here, which again, sometimes we need to do. So what I need to do is for my least common denominator on this one, I'm just going to put the two together. It's going to be x plus 1 times x plus 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by this least common denominator. So times x plus 1 times x plus 5. Same thing over here, times x plus 1 times x plus 5. And so that makes my denominators go away. But on this left side, I'm left with x plus 5. So we have to multiply that negative 4 by x plus 5. So that's going to end up being negative 4x minus 20 equals, and then on this side, we have to multiply the negative 1 by x plus 1. So we're going to end up with negative x minus 1. And now we need to solve for x. I'm going to add the 4x over to this side. And I'm going to move the 1 over to this side, so plus 1, plus 1. And so we're going to end up with negative x plus 4 is 3x equals negative 20 plus 1 is negative 19. Divide by 3, divide by 3. We get x equals negative 19 over 3, which you can leave as a fraction because that can't be simplified any further. Okay. 11 is a very similar idea, so we're looking, again, these two denominators do not have anything in common, and so we'll do this one in blue. So we'll say their least common denominator is c minus 8 times c plus 5. Again, just throw the two together. So we're going to multiply both sides by this least common denominator. So we'll multiply by c minus 8 and the c plus 5. Same thing on this side, c minus 8, c plus 5. So again, this side, both sides, our denominators go away. And what we're left with, we have to multiply together. So on the left side, we have the c plus 5 times c plus 3, which gets us c squared plus 8c plus 15. Equals, and then c minus 4 times c minus 8, so we get c squared minus 12c plus 32. So now we're going to try to move all of the c's to one side, so we'll go ahead and subtract c squared, which actually just goes away. We'll add the 12c over to this side. And then I'm going to move the 15 over here with the 32, so we'll subtract 15. So 8 plus 12 is 20, so we'll end up with a 20c is equal to 32 minus 15 is 17. Divide both sides by 20, and we are going to get c equals 17 over 20. So once again, this fraction doesn't simplify, but if it did, you would need to reduce it. Okay. Looking at 12. All right, 12 is a little more complicated. We have 3 denominators to work with. But you notice this one and this one, they don't need to be factored. We only have a squared minus 36 to deal with. A squared minus 36 is a difference of 2 squares. So instead of saying a squared minus 36, we can say a plus 6 times a minus 6. And so that means for this one, my least common denominator, we'll put him down there. My least common denominator, two of them share that a plus 6, and then 2 of them share that a minus 6. So this is my least common denominator. So we'll multiply all of them. We'll just write it as one big multiplication. So that means everything on this first fraction cancels. And so we're left with just a. On the second one, the a minus 6 will cancel, but you're going to be left with an a plus 6 with the 2. So it's going to be plus 2 times a plus 6 equals, And on the 1 over a plus 6, the a plus 6 will cancel, but you still have that a minus 6 hanging out. So 1 times a minus 6 is just a minus 6. I'm going to go ahead and multiply that 2, so this is going to be 2a plus 12. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and subtract this a over, and we'll just combine all of the a's together. We'll subtract 12 over this side. So a minus a plus 12, that's going to be, or plus 2a, excuse me. It's going to be 2a is equal to negative 18. Divide by 2 on both sides, we get a equals negative 9. Now at any point, if you're confused on how I'm multiplying these things together, so like c plus 5, c plus 3, you need to refer back to your topic 5 notes where we factored things, where we multiplied polynomials together. You need to refer back to those notes, okay? Now, number 13 ended up being a little more complicated than I anticipated. We're going to go ahead and skip 13, and we're going to jump straight to 14. So 14 is what we saw on the rational work problems, so refer back to those notes. It says a group of college students are volunteering for Help the Homeless during the spring break. They're putting the finishing touches on a house. Working alone, Caitlin can paint a certain room in 3 hours. Brianna can paint the same room in 7 hours. So we need to write an equation that can be used to show how, if they work together, how long it would take them. And then solve for it. How long would it take them? So working alone, it says Caitlin is 3 hours, so we'll say 1 over 3, because again, it's always 1 over the individual times. Brianna is 7 hours, so that's going to be 1 over 7. And it's together, that's going to be 1 over something. Since we don't know what that something is, we'll call it x. Now remember, since they're working together, we're going to say plus. If they were working against each other, we would subtract, but they're working together, so we're going to add these two. So there's nothing to factor, so my least common denominator is going to be 3 times 7 is 21x. So 21x, 21x. Just like we did on the last ones, multiply all of them. So 21x over 3 is going to be 7x, plus 21x over 7 is 3x, equals 21x over x is just 21. So this is 10x equals 21. Divide by 10. We're going to get x is equal to 2.1 hours if they worked together. Okay? So that is going to conclude our Topic 11B review. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, please reach out to your teacher. Otherwise, study hard and good luck.